You hear the term liberal feminism, and you probably think it's pretty straightforward, right? Well, what if I told you it's actually a house divided against itself? There's this fundamental split that creates two entirely different and often opposing versions of what it even means to be a feminist.
Okay, so at its heart, liberalism is all about one powerful idea: freedom. And liberal feminists, they grab that idea and run with it. They say, hey, freedom for all has to mean freedom for women too. Sounds simple enough, but this is exactly where the crocs start to appear. And believe it or not, this huge disagreement, it all boils down to just one word: freedom. I mean, what does it actually mean to be free? Because depending on how you answer that, you end up on one of two completely different paths to equality.
So that's the big question, isn't it? What is freedom? Is it just being left alone? Or is it about having the real, actual power to go out and shape your own life? The answer has massive implications, and we're about to dive in and see just how deep this split really goes.
Yeah, a great way to think about it is like a fork in the road. You've got both groups starting in the exact same spot, right? They both value freedom above everything else. But depending on how they define that one little word, they take a sharp turn and end up heading in totally opposite directions to completely different places.
Okay, this right here, this is the heart of it all. On one side, you have the egalitarian liberals. For them, freedom is autonomy. It's about having the power to actively go out and create your own life. But on the other side, you've got the classical liberals, and they see freedom as freedom from coercion. Basically, the right to be left alone. It's a huge difference, right? The presence of opportunity versus the absence of interference. And that one little distinction, it changes everything. So let's actually walk down these two paths and see where they take us. What do these different visions of freedom look like in the real world? Let's start with path A. For these egalitarian liberals, freedom is not a passive thing. It's not just about being left alone. No, it's an active state. It's having genuine personal and political autonomy. We're talking about the power to be the author of your own story and even a co-author of the society you're living in. It's a vision that's all about empowerment.
And they argue you can't just wave a magic wand and declare someone free. Real autonomy, they say, requires what they call enabling conditions. Think about it. Are you really free if you're living in fear of violence, or if you can't access a decent education or find a good job? For them, the answer is no. Freedom needs a solid foundation to stand on. And this leads to a really crucial point. The egalitarian liberals see the state, or the government, as a potential ally. They believe it can and absolutely should play a role in creating those enabling conditions we just talked about, the things that make true freedom and autonomy possible for women. All right, now let's switch gears and check out path B. And this is a very different turn. For classical liberal feminists, freedom is all about what it's not. It's freedom from being messed with, from coercive interference. The whole idea is rooted in self-ownership. You own you, your body, your life, and nobody, especially not the government, gets to interfere with that using force, period. So their vision for government is pretty straightforward. Its only job is to act like a security guard for our basic rights. Protecting our freedom of speech, our right to control our own bodies, our right to own property. That's it. Anything more than that is seen as a massive overreach. And this way of thinking leads to a pretty striking conclusion. For classical liberals, the main political task of feminism is just to get rid of any laws that treat men and women differently. And they'd argue that in places like the US, that job is, well, it's largely done. Any other feminist work that needs doing? They say that belongs in the world of culture and society, not in politics. Okay, so we've got these two kind of abstract philosophies. But why does any of this actually matter in the real world? Well, it matters a lot, because these two competing ideas about freedom lead to completely opposite takes on some of the biggest policy debates out there. Let's start with a big one. What about anti-discrimination laws? Laws that apply to private businesses. How would each group feel about that? And whoa, the split here is crystal clear. The egalitarian liberals, they're all for these laws. They see them as absolutely essential for opening up more options for women. But the classical liberals, they see it as a major overreach, infringing on a private citizen's freedom of association and contract. All right, next up, how about something like affirmative action? And yeah, you can probably guess, the two sides are in completely different corners on this one too.
The egalitarian liberals would see affirmative action as a necessary tool, something to help level a playing field that's been tilted for a long time. But the classical liberals, they see it as a form of preferential treatment that actually violates the idea of equal treatment under the law. It's the government picking winners and losers in their view.
And for our last example, let's talk about welfare state programs, things like subsidized daycare or income support. This one really throws that political divide into sharp relief.
And here it is, the final stark contrast. For egalitarian liberals, these programs are a totally proper use of state power. They ensure a decent standard of living, which is a key condition for that autonomy we talked about. But for the classical liberals, this is a massive overreach of state power. It goes way beyond its only justified role, which is just protecting people from coercion.
So when you boil it all down, this whole complex debate, it really comes down to this one question. Is freedom just the absence of obstacles, or is it the presence of opportunities? And that's the fundamental question, right at the heart of this divide within liberal feminism. And it's a question that really challenges all of us to think about what freedom actually means, and what kind of freedom we think leads to true equality. So what do you think?